Hello everyone, today we have stories straight from prison. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Enjoy watching. Story 1 from user Jofa Sunshine. I didn't expect it. But this was cathartic to write about growing up. I loved my stepdad, and now it's common knowledge to me that he was a big-time drug dealer and committed multiple armed robberies. He died when I was 10 and was never caught. But when I was told about it when I was older, so much made sense. He always had stupid amounts of money. One day, my eldest brother was going the shop for him and was given $5 for going to, which my sister wasn't happy with, as she would have went the shop for him. So he gave her $5 too. My other brother, same deal, wasn't happy, so got given $5, my oldest brother the one going. The shop wasn't happy about them getting the same, so he was given another $10. This continued until they each were given $200. And I, being the baby and favorite five-ish, was given $300, all for no reason other than my eldest brother got given money for going the shop. There was always people in our house, all nice people. But from the age I can first remembered until we moved out, I thought it was normal to have people knocking all day every day. Anytime, this is a strange one. But he had 3 fingers on one hand. I never questioned it. Thought he was a ninja turtle. But I've since thought that he had basically been found with his hands in the till and got caught by those he hoped not to catch him. So many other things one time were in the pub over the road. I was on my own with him. He knew everyone, and everyone knew I was his kid. So it was like a giant playground with all of these interesting people. One man did backflips for me every time I asked, which to a little boy is phenomenal. And he won on the fruit machines. This was a jackpot. And to this day, I can remember the sound of the pound coins falling down, and when they finally finished, he had put down a bar tray with a towel over to stop the noise. He picked the towel up with all of the money in it, picked me up with his other arm, said goodbye, and walked out of the pub. This was the coolest thing I ever saw. Everyone treated him with respect. I thought he was the greatest man who ever lived, which is amazing to look back on, considering now. My actual father is my hero. My dad is a quiet, hard-working man who was always a great dad, but he just didn't have me in awe, like my stepfather did. He beat my mother. I was too young to realize. But I remember, if that makes sense, they fought like cat and dog, and when she finally left him and the lifestyle he brought, I was devastated when he found her. He held a gun to her head, threatening to shoot her, and stabbed her in the leg. All of this was kept from me until it just came out in passing when I was in my late teens, about 2 years after he had found her. And after he had stopped trying to get her back, she discovered he was dying, and though still alive, had basically drank himself to death with death. But too quick for death to actually do anything about it, yet she took me to see him in the hospital. And I can remember thinking, he looked like Homer Simpson, as he was literally yellow. I thought I'd go and see him and everything would be the same. I was only 7 or 8 then, but he barely paid me any attention. I wish I hadn't gone to see him. I cried for days when I found out he had died. I do wonder what would have happened if he was still alive, and I'm sure at some point I would have gone back to him when I was growing up 50. For money, let's be real, and 50 for the way he made me feel. I was his blue eye, which was actually my nickname in the house because of it. And he adored me as much as I adored him. I was his son, and we were his children. But my mom had to escape. And when she did, he told her, if she didn't come back, he would drink himself to death, which eventually happened. When I started high school, I discovered my new best friend actually lived in the house we had all lived in. And when I asked if he knew the person who lived there before, he said yes, Billy the druggie. I was torn. How to reply? I wanted to defend him, but I also knew he was right, and he was my new friend. And I cannot honestly remember anything else about that, other than him saying those words. Now being a father myself, I wonder how he'd feel about me. He was boisterous, loud, and respected, whereas I am a lot like my dad, and quiet, reserved, and just do my job, go home and look after my family. I'm the opposite of who he was. But despite the things I know he did, and the abundance of things, I can guess he did, that I was never told I would like to see him again when I pass. He was more important to me than anyone, including my mom, when I was at such a dependable age, and he looked after me. Nothing takes that away. Although I'm glad he's gone because selfishly, I don't have to choose between not having him in my life when I wanted something or not. I don't think I was strong enough to have not gone to him again, selfishly when I wanted something growing up and would have got it. And who knows how. I would have ended up one of my best friends growing up murdered someone, and a close friend growing up killed someone. The difference is, the murderer stabbed someone to death with a machete. Something which rumor goes he wasn't planning on doing. But as they were play fighting, he got enraged and did so. And the other was fighting drunk with another man, punched him, and he fell hitting his head and died. The murderer. I completely expected it. He was the toughest kid in the area, always in trouble and afraid of nothing, unless you knew him properly to me. He was just my mate. We played football and sneaked a lager out of his fridge in his birthday party, and all got drunk off one stubby. Between the three of us, one summer, I don't remember spending a whole lot of time with him. But when I did, he was just a normal kid who knows what went on his household. He was in my house the morning of our first day of high school, as nervous as I was, and not 2 weeks later he was expelled. The next time I see him was at the park we all used to congregate at on weeknight evenings, and he came in like a wrecking ball and beat up about 10 people separately. And when he got to me and I told him to calm down, he asked, "Is that little Joe?" and kissed me on the forehead. Then he went on and beat up all of my friends. I had heard stories of him, but haven't seen him until that day. And the only connection I had with him was walking home one night, and a woman was laying on the floor who had been beaten up, and it was him who did it. She told me not to ring the police, so I didn't. But at the time, he had been in a car crash and had beaten her up whilst wearing one of those massive neck braces that made it almost impossible to move in. The next time I heard his name, he had murdered his friend. I don't know if he's still in prison. I'd like to see him again. Not to be friends with him, but just to see what happened. I always felt like he'd grow out of how he was on the outside to some people and end up one of those stories where it comes good in the end. But I highly doubt it. Now, the second friend I didn't expect, and I suppose that type of thing could have happened to anyone. He was fighting drunk outside of a pub, and he punched the other man, and he fell, hit his head, and died. This friend was a nice lad, and I would have never expected it again. Though that could have been anyone, he is out of prison now and has shown complete remorse. I was completely shocked when I heard it. But when the circumstances came out, I just thought it was a desperately sad situation so long, but didn't stop once I started and felt right to write about something I never have before. Talder, my stepfather, who I adored, I discovered was a big-time drug dealer, armed robber, and had held a gun to my mother's head in our new home whilst we were in school and stabbed her. And I have friends who have killed people, all of this, and I'm just a normal lad who felt like he had a normal childhood until I look back. Story 2 from user Slowly Rotten Away. Well, been watching this thread since I got up for work today, shortly after it was made written. Probably 5 replies that I deleted and just couldn't send. Let's see if I can manage to actually post this one. Haven't been able to stop thinking about all this since I first read the title this morning. Hopefully getting this out and posting it will maybe help me shake the feelings from it. Who knows anyway. Sigh, this may be long or might end up being relatively short. I don't know. Yet not sure how much I will be able to type up before breaking down. My dad is a convicted sexual offender growing up. I always thought there was something wrong with my dad, besides him beating the shit out of me before, without any warning. Besides the heavy drinking at times, I just never could trust him around females ever. I was always uncomfortable with it long back. As I can remember, I also have periods of blankness growing up, where I just can't remember anything at all. Like I'll look at photos and know it's me in the photo, but not remember anything about it. I also have always had trouble with my own body and certain things about it. I still to this day don't know if I was sexually assaulted by him or not. I really wish I did. Anyways, my sisters told me once when I was maybe 18 that my dad isn't right and not to trust him. I always knew this, and they just reassured me. They asked if he took advantage of me. And at the time I said no. Wait, turns out my dad had raped both my sisters more. Then once when we're younger now, fast forward some time, and my sisters both have kids, they allow my dad around them alone. I expressed I was not comfortable with it and made myself there as much as possible to watch my dad. Like Hawk, long story short, 4 times, there ends up being some incidents that are not only completely inexcusable and sick, once while in the pool with both my sisters. Kids, his swim trunks fell off and he acted like it was an accident. Later come to find out my one niece says he attempted to get them to play with his wee-wee, as she called it. Also, 2 more incidents occurred that I still can't even think about. This then becomes a dark family secret for a while. No charges are pressed at the time, but they will not allow him any contact with the kids. I didn't really agree with this at all, but they also never fully made me aware of the entire situation. He was around 65 years old when this all happened. They, I guess, just expected him to die. IDK. I still don't have answers for this either. Fast forward now a few more years later. Think 25 years, my sister and her husband are going through a divorcee. I'm now still stuck living at home with my asshole dad. Our relationship is crap. I'm focusing on nothing but trying to get away from my entire family and not turn into a piece of shit, like them, out of my entire large family. I'm the only male over 18 years old without felony charges. Well, with the impeding divorce. All of a sudden, my sister's husband, who knew about the entire ordeal all along, decides to file charges against my dad. The state police show up at my house, warrant in hand for him. I had extremely mixed feelings at this time. Relief, joy, helplessness, wondering what will happen next. At the time, I was working as an armed security officer in a very good job with a local well-known family, also had completed the police academy, and was working part-time in that field as well. Because of the charges, it sent me into the biggest battle with depression in my entire life. I became suicidal over the entire thing now to make this even more fun during this. Because of his health and age, they only ever gave my dad 6 months in prison the first time and 30 years of probation. Yippee. What the is the bloody point in that? So now here I am, working on making myself better, and GTFO from my family. What happens to me? I can't afford to move out my licensees. Both for being an armed security guard in 3 states and police officer must be surrendered, and am still stuck living with my now 72-year-old piece of shit dad till he is 6 foot underground. I still work security, but for an unarmed company, and also am back to being a PT cop after years of fighting to get my license back. Oh yeah, and to make my life and my family's life even more fun. Because of the level of my dad's offenses, he is not allowed into the state of Delaware, period. Guess where I work? Any vehicle at my residence? No matter who drives it must be registered on the sexual offender list for over a year. I couldn't even get to work some days without getting stopped by the police licensee plate scanners right now. I'm stuck living with and caring for my sick, mentally and physically, father every day that he is not in the hospital. I have to stare and help him. It's been tearing me apart, ruined our family. I don't even talk to either of my sisters anymore, really, just because of the entire ordeal. I suffer badly from PTSD with it all, and I have non-epileptic stress-caused seizures, which thankfully I'm finally somewhat starting to control. Today's been a crap day with that. Also, since reading this post, I've had a few minor seizures at work, and I'm sure tonight when I go home and try to relax, I'll have more. I just want to blow my brains out right now. Even starting to think about all this right now. Yes, I'm sure there is a ton of grammar errors in this. Yes, I'm sure some of it doesn't make sense. Yes, there is way more to the entire story than I can bear to type out on here. Yes, I know some of it is poorly worded. This is just the best I could do. Typing this all out right now, I'm shaking like a leaf thinking about all this and just want to crawl into a ball and die. Don't believe it all. I don't blame you. Am I an idiot for standing by him? Yup. But right now, there just is not another option. Myself and my mom are stuck living with this piece of shit. Till farther notice. Arg my life. Sorry for the mini rants during this. It's just a really hard subject for me that I still struggle with daily so badly. Story 3 from user deleted. Don't know if you count this. But my father was convicted of multiple counts of fraud for his part in a major financial scandal in the early 2000s. Finding out I had been back home for a few months after spending almost a year away at various drug treatment facilities. I had stayed clean, gotten my own place and a job, and I was doing all right one day at about $1,000. I got a call from my dad. He told me in a very intimidating dad voice that I needed to come to the house that night so he and mom could talk to me. Then he hung up. I panicked. I began running, though every possible thing I could have done wrong. I'd been walking the straight and narrow. I'd confessed to the most important things they needed to know from my time, using what could it be. I had to spend all day in the grip of a deep and confusing fear. I even ran through some possible blackout scenarios that seemed plausible. By the time I got to their house, I was basically a sweaty mess of bewildered terror. I took a deep breath and walked in the front door. There sat my mother and sister in the living room, while my father and a very large man in a black suit stood. Dad asked me to sit down after an awkward silence that I am positive was much shorter than it seemed. The besuited stranger introduced himself as name redacted from the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The FBI people, I leapt from my chair and immediately began mounting my defense. Nothing I had ever done during my drug-using days could have attracted the attention of the federal government, and I was going to be damned if anyone was going to try and throw some high-level shit on me, as I passionately professed my innocence. The entire room dissolved into laughter, maintaining my defensive stance. I asked as reasonably as could be expected, what exactly was so funny amidst the tearful laughter of my family? This extra from Men in Black informed me that he wasn't here for me. My father had confessed his guilt in a very large, long-term corporate fraud and would be the government's key witness. In its case against the CEO, I was so relieved that he wasn't there for me that I joined in with the incredibly inappropriate laughter that the rest of my family was using to hide their pain. Slowly, the gravity of the situation dawned on me. My father had been lying to us almost my entire life. Everything was going to change, and probably not for the better. We were going to be under public scrutiny, and we faced potential danger from those my father was going to testify against. But for a few minutes, it was all funny. TLDR thought the FBI agent that was there to tell me about my father's role in a long-term financial fraud was there to arrest me for something I didn't do during my time as an active drug addict. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and write comments. See you later.